Everyone's sick except me.
I'm telling you, man. I would say, in recovery, but this cold has lasted longer than both of my COVID bouts, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, how are you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm not sick.
Good.
I did have an allergic reaction last night. Throat started closing up a little bit.
Uh-oh.
This podcast is unofficially sponsored by Benadryl,
Oh, there you go.
and me being actively on it. So I'm a little slow. So I'm maybe listening to this podcast at
2x.
1.5 speed just in case.
There you go.
Speed me up. Did some puking
There you go.
and scared Alyssa, and then everything's okay.
Good.
All good.
My dog, when you say Benadryl, gets excited because he has these allergies where his paws will get itchy and he'll lick them. So we have to give him Benadryl, but we put it in peanut butter. So when you say Benadryl to him, he believes it is peanut butter and starts freaking out and getting excited. So just a note for Alyssa for next time. If she needs to give you Benadryl and you're having a difficult time, just put it in peanut butter and you'll never know.
That unfortunately is the thing I'm allergic to.
Oh, are you
So
serious?
That would cause.
Oh, no.
That would be an interesting double whammy.
I'm sorry.
No, we're good. Hey,
Almond
if it
butter?
works for a rebel, it works for a rebel. That would defeat the purpose of the Benadryl for me.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
No,
Love peanut butter. It
so
sucks.
good.
Oh, World Cup final is on right now.
Halftime,
What's the score?
2-0. Argentina.
Wow, 2 goals. Fucking, is this going to go down in the record books as an all-time World Cup game?
Will Embiid play better if France wins or loses?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's my rooting interest.
Worth noting. We'll try.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Okay. Rights to Ricky Sanchez. There we go. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Mortgage CS. Become a Mortgage CS Ricky VIP at mortgagecs.com/Ricky. Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process, 302-864-8643. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged, and Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, the Mike 9 wins in a row challenge is still alive as the Sixers get their 4th straight. James Harden does a long interview with our friend Yaron Wiseman. We will get to the Ringers Top 100 and the ESPN MVP straw poll, and more entertaining mailbag and voicemail questions as always. I did mention Kinetic Skateboarding, a trusted sponsor of the Ricky. We are 1 week from Christmas, and it is possible that you still have shopping to do. And Kinetic is a great source of shopping, I would imagine, for many Ricky listeners because of the clothing they have, because of the sneakers they have, because of the great deals on snowboards and snowboarding equipment that they have. In fact, if you buy a new snowboard from them right now, you get free tunes for life. We love Kinetic, a great spot for your last-minute Christmas shopping. Go to kineticskateboarding.com and use code DaveSilver for 9.1% off your first order. And we'd like to wish a happy 30th birthday to Johnny Mills, who turns 30 this week. This comes from Johnny's friend, Ella. Johnny is the person that turned Ella on to the Ricky. He grew up in Oregon, moved to Philly, became a Sixers fan, and then turned Ella on to the Ricky. And now he is in Perth, Australia, right this second, visiting his family. He lives in Denver now. Sorry to hear. But we want to wish a very happy birthday to Johnny from Ella. This is the shout-out section of the pod. And and one final thing. Well, I guess if you're hearing it here, it doesn't matter. Very quickly, if you listen to the pod on Google Podcasts suck. We always have trouble with them. We've had trouble with them the 10 years we've done this podcast. Please listen elsewhere. That is my note. Anywhere else. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name. I say the name. I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Rights to Ricky Sanchez forever.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy whose throat is open for business. That is one Mike Levin.
Wide open. Come on in. That's 4.
4 in a row, buddy. Four in a row.
4 of 9. A necessary 4. Not thus far. Beating the Warriors without Steph and Draymond and Wiggins
Yep.
is not an accomplishment. It's not
No.
a feat,
No,
but
it counts.
it counts.
Yeah.
And these were 9 wins that they needed to have. They have 4 of them so far. 5 to go.
Yeah. You have to, it's like baby steps, right? I mean, you don't want to overshower them with praise for winning 4 games in a row when the first one was a disaster. One was against the Hornets. One was against the Warriors without Steph, Draymond, and Wiggins, though the Kings win was a good one.
Yeah.
However, the idea of this particular team, this particular season, winning 4 in a row a couple of weeks ago seemed, regardless of opponent, seemed like a pretty deep long shot. So and the idea that they were at one point 2-5 with both Embiid and Harden, and the two looking like they were playing in different worlds. So them both playing well at the same time and winning 4 in a row is good. It counts.
Yeah. Look, it all counts.
Yeah.
The NBA basketball still. And this is a Sixers team that has come out looking flat against lesser opponents many times over the years.
Yep.
And they did it against the Warriors, and it seemed like there was just such a, abject sluggishness out in the court, but pulled it together. Warriors did hit a bunch of shots. That is part of it, but they also hit a bunch of shots that were wide open because the Sixers were very clearly not giving a fuck. But there were still some nice things that you saw in that game, and look, we need 9 wins in a row. I don't care how they come. So this is almost halfway there.
Yeah, it was another the Harden hit shots game. I thought it was a pretty decent Harden game, and another like strong, engaged Embiid game once they started trying, I thought. And they it was I also thought like D'Anthony Melton had a couple of like every game. There's a couple of times defensively where he gets his hands on a ball okay. I want to compare him, not to shit on Thibault. I want to compare him to Thibault in that, like, defensively, I feel like when Melton gets in a passing lane, he is not taking himself out of position to do whatever he was doing before. Like,
That's
you don't
fair.
even notice it.
Yeah.
Whereas Thibault feels like he's playing free safety a little bit, and you can see it. But Melton seems to have a much better, on a string sense of team defense and when to go for those than Thibault does. And he's such a fantastic defender in that way.
I think that's right. There are a couple times when I don't find... I feel like the one issue I would have with that is that I think Melton occasionally overhelps.
Okay.
And puts his body in the middle, in that no man's land, where he's not actually double teaming the ball to try to, like, make it hard on them, and he's not actually, and he's too far away to contest. And I don't feel like Matisse does that quite as much to my eye.
Right. Sure.
And that's just a personal pet peeve of mine, like overhelping pointlessly. I forget who Matisse was covering, but Melton helped onto Matisse, and then the act of just going over there allowed his guy to be open for three.
Sure.
And you just don't need to do that. I mean, especially on Matisse, you don't need to do that. I think that's what they're asking you to do. Whenever any team double teams Harden, I'm kissing their feet, thanking them. Like, it's easy. It makes it a lot easier. Like, I just don't understand why teams do it, why coaches have teams do it. I think it's mostly bad. I mean, I get why they double team Embiid, especially in parts of the court, like the low block or something where you can come on his blind side, you can steal the ball. That's absolutely necessary, especially if you're a good team like with length, like the Raptors or whatever. But when you're double teaming Embiid in the middle of the court, that's a good lesson and good practice for Joel to just find the open player. And I think a little bit, not as much as I would like, but a little bit over the past couple of games, they've done enough movement where it's not just Embiid gets doubled and now, one guy in the corner can cover both the guy in the baseline corner and the guy at the wing extended. And I think they've been moving a little bit. I think PG does a decent job of like setting a screen there. That's what he loves to do. So as far as what I want, I don't want them to double on defense as much as possible, especially with Embiid back there. And with defenders like Thibault, Melton, and PJ, you shouldn't have to. And on offense, I want them to keep exploiting that, and I think they have been doing a slightly better job of that than previously.
It was also a nice Shake Milton game, I thought, who is continuing his solid play even with Harden's, even with Harden's return. I'm interested to see when Maxey gets back where his spot is, but has looked more under control and almost vet-like than he ever has in his career, I think, knowing what he's supposed to do all the time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he missed a couple shots at the rim this game that he had been making previously. And that happens. He was, I think, probably a little bit shooting over his head at the rim, numbers-wise. So he was bound for that. And I think Kevon Looney is a solid player that impacts the shot like that a lot. But, man, he's just a good player. He's just a good player, and it's nice to have another guy on the court that's not Harden who can get his shot and get a decent look at the shot. He can get, he's not Chris Middleton. He's not Kawhi. He's not unstoppable. But he's a guy, an NBA player that in any given situation can, with 4 seconds left on the shot clock, can get into the paint and get at least a decent 12-footer off where he can create space because he's so long and he shoots it over his head. It's a nice luxury to have. And I'm curious to see when the playoffs come around what those like 3 or 4 guys are. Mm-hmm. And I think, the long season's still to go. Shake is making the case that he should be one of those guys.
I think that is absolutely fair. And it more than anything, good to know that he exists if one of the other 2 primary guys, ball handler guys, are incapacitated for any reason, like him being available if Maxey were to be in foul trouble or Harden were to be out for a game with a hamstring or something is super positive, I think.
Yeah, and I think they're making a point to get him the ball in places where he can do those things. I think earlier in the season it was just a little bit, okay, Shake, stand in the corner. And he couldn't really get into a rhythm there. And this time I think they're, every broadcast, national broadcast where the coaches are mic'd up and we get inside the huddle.
Yep.
Doc says the same thing every time, right? What does he say?
I don't even know.
He plays pace. Move it up. You gotta play pace. Pace. He's just doing that every time. It's just like I'm sure he's saying other things in the huddle, and they're only allowed to televise the obvious stuff, but he's only saying move the ball, play with pace. That's the only thing he's saying. And I think in those moments, you can see Shake, them trying to push ahead and give Shake the ball in semi-transition so he can exploit an unset defense. And I really liked my favorite play of the game against the Warriors was Harden immediately getting a rebound, not putting the ball on the floor even once, turning, seeing Dan House has, the cornerback beat deep, and two-handed chest pass right into his lap.
You
for a
love
dunk.
those passes.
I do love those passes.
You love them.
Well, how can you not?
I'm not saying you love them. That's all I'm
I
saying.
die for them because they're so rare with this team. Both having a guy that could make that pass, which I guess Simmons was kind of, but I don't think did it as much as I would like. And then have a guy that is willing to take off in transition and is fast enough to beat the defense and then also dunk easily. Anthony Lamb was coming over. He ended up fouling Dan House there.
I kind of like him, by the way, Anthony Lamb.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He went to college at Vermont.
How about that?
Yeah. But like, it's just those necessary transition points are so big. And Embiid had a play where I think it was Van Gundy on the call, where he noticed like you can get these plays in the playoffs if you're running the court and get easy Embiid dunks and stuff. And there was a nice play where Embiid got a dunk in transition, which I loved. It's such a slog sometimes in a half court setting for this team. They are capable of looking good. Obviously, the pick and roll is nice when the shots are going in. There's a lot of things that the defense can't take away. But sometimes when it gets slow and they're not playing with Doc's preferred pace, it's such a blessing to just be able to get a quick bucket in transition the way other teams seem to much more frequently.
All right, I have a Doc question for you in 1 second. Before I do, Mortgage CS, sponsor of the Ricky, trusted sponsor, mortgage broker, local, independent, serves only you. That's right, only you. My advice to you, if you've never purchased a home or needed a mortgage before, Mortgage CS should be your first stop. My advice to you, even if you have before and you had somebody you liked working with, give Mortgage CS a shot. MortgageCS.com/Ricky. MortgageCS.com/Ricky. Go there to find out more about them and what the difference in how they work and what they do is. Go there as well to become a Ricky VIP. Make sure when you make an appointment with them, you let them know you're a Ricky listener. The difference between Mortgage CS and other mortgage lenders, when you just Google, or the mortgage brokers rather, when you just Google, get me a mortgage or whatever. Mortgage CS, not a lender. So they're not giving you the money, right? What they do is they go to all the lenders and they find the best rate for you. The best thing about Mortgage CS, I would say two things. First of all, because they don't have any unsaid, relationships with any of these banks, their only relationship is with you. Their only job is to get you the best rate. A lot of mortgage brokers have relationships with specific banks, so they want to lead you toward them, even though it might not be the best for you. And the other great thing about Mortgage CS is they are invested in making sure you understand how this entire process works. So when you walk away, you're going to know more about the mortgage process. Even if you end up not getting the mortgage through Mortgage CS, you're going to be more educated. They're available whenever you need them, morning, night, middle of the night, weekends, holidays, whatever. 267-391-7425 is their CEO's cell phone number, direct cell phone number. You can text them or call them right now. 267-391-7425. All I ask is that you give them a shot. And so many Ricky listeners have, and all of them say the same thing. Wow, you were right. Everything you said about Mortgage CS was right. Go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky, mortgagecs.com/Ricky, whether you're refinancing, whether you're debt consolidating, or you're buying a new home, or call or text Ben 267-391-7425. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com/Ricky for more information. All right, Doc. I'm famously not a coach guy. Don't like talking about the coaches.
I am a coach guy.
You are a coach.
Have to be said.
You're specifically
In so many ways.
a coach, right? We'll get to that in the voicemail. A lot of Coach Mike.
Oh, really?
Action in the voicemail and the emails. Yes, Coach Mike. The profile of Coach Mike is raising to a level we've not seen in quite a while.
Wow.
Yeah. So the reason I don't like talking about the coach is generally like the coach is only a reason to say why things are going wrong and rarely why things are going right. The Sixers have played better the last 4 games. Embiid and Harden look like better, more engaged the last 4 games. Like no one, 0 people are saying wow, Doc Rivers really, they look like they're getting it together thanks to Doc Rivers. Not that I think it is him, but like, I think the coach becomes like this outlet for everything that you don't like about the team, and whether it has anything to do with them or not. Like when we see Embiid and Harden unengaged, we're like, well, that's the coach's job. Well, then when they are engaged, we don't go and then credit the coach. And that is my problem. I don't care if they fire Doc Rivers. I don't think he's a good coach or anything, but I just think a lot of what ails the Sixers this season has very little to do with the coach. And I think we would all agree, we've all said, like, oh, is Nick Nurse a good coach? We'd all say yes, right? Nick Nurse is a good coach. Well, outside of that Kawhi season, that team's done nothing. They're underperforming this year. And like, I don't know if it's Nick Nurse's fault or not, but like, I just think like we get it in our heads what is wrong, and we always err to the side of the coach when it's usually not the coach. And I just like to think that things that are wrong with the Sixers this year aren't specifically coach related. And I think the fact that Doc Rivers is not getting credit for them playing better is perhaps indicative of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in there. It's a little bit like, an umpire or an offensive line is like, you're only mentioning them when they're bad.
When something goes wrong, yeah.
But I think these are 4 games that the Sixers should have won.
Yes, I agree.
And it's not like they're required some coaching brilliance.
For sure.
I think Doc is a coach where you're not seeing it, You're not seeing, unlike Ty Lue or Nick Nurse, as just as an example, and there's plenty of newer coaches that I like this season a lot. You're not seeing like, wow, look at this play or look at this choice that they made here. He's just saying like pace and like do your thing, and he's like waving his arms on the sideline and he's making faces. Like he's not like a coach that you look at him and you're like, that guy's coaching. That guy's out here making choices, and those choices are succeeding. I think in some ways that's why he has gotten a reputation of being a player's coach, is because he is just empowering his best players to like go do their thing and not trying to do that much more than that, not over coaching. But he's not that good.
Look, I agree with you, and I think his worst quality is that he's an asshole and he doesn't care that much. But I would say, if we had a positive view of Doc Rivers, like if our memory was washed away of Doc and was replaced by some other coach, we would say, wow, well, under Doc, Joel Embiid has had his best seasons, MVP caliber seasons. Under Doc, Tyrese Maxey has gone from X to Y. Under Doc, Tobias Harris has gone from ball stopper player A to buy-in player B. Under Doc, Shake Milton has gone from A to B, right? Like under Doc, like George Niang has gone from like role player X to role player Y. And I'm not saying he is responsible for those things, but what I am saying is, if we had a positive view of him, we would give him credit for those things.
That's fair.
Because we don't, and again, I think he's an asshole. I don't care if they fire him, but I do think we're a little picky and choosy about what we blame him for and what we give him credit for.
100%. I think that's completely fair. I think also the fact that like the thing that I'm like hyper focused on with Doc
Backup center.
is backup center.
All right.
And Montrezl Harrell sucks now. Hasn't always sucked. Has sucked the last couple seasons. And he is insistent on playing him, despite the fact that he is giving them nothing.
Sure. Well, I blame Daryl just as much for that. I
blame Daryl for sure for allowing his coach's worst impulses. Although Daryl did blame, like, he's the reason why we have him. It's like, yeah, thanks, Daryl.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. So that is the thing that I am like frustratingly focused on. Perhaps to a lot of listeners on this podcast. Perhaps to Daryl. But they fall off a cliff without Embiid, and the backup center option is either a guy that like looks a little bit lost sometimes, but has capable length and wingspan and instincts, or a guy that is just literally just doing nothing out there. He had one block in the Warriors game, and then like that's like his defensive play for the month. He's just 11 minutes, 1 shot attempt, miss, 2 rebounds, no other statistics. Like it's just like, what are we doing? He's just not good. There's in the Harden article, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
Harden mentioned that this team has no lob threats.
Yes.
And I think obviously that doesn't mean that like guys can't catch a lob. Like there were a couple lobs thrown. Matisse is capable of doing that, although it's
By the way,
necessarily comfortable.
Embiid catching a lob for the first time in probably like 5 years against Golden State.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it very much. But it's just like, if you're not going to play a guy that, anyway, that's fine. I've done it so many times. But yeah, I think your point is a fair one. I think the fact that he's an asshole colors a lot of the how we feel about him. And the Sixers have been good in regular season, and there's honestly nothing that Doc can do in the regular season to adjust the narrative on him.
No.
At this point, he's just had too many playoff collapses. He's had too many great players that underperform in the playoffs, and too many blown leads. Like it's just it's
all fair.
There's not much that he can do, and I think that like, was he getting too much blame for when they weren't playing up to their potential earlier this season? Maybe a little bit. I think a lot of it is just like time together, between Harden, Embiid, and Maxey. Just like they're trying to develop this ecosystem. You remember in those clips from training camp, or I don't remember if it was in South Carolina or back in Philly, but like him saying like, this isn't a democracy, like that kind of conversation. I think like that is how he thinks about it, and he thinks about that a lot more than he thinks about like what plays to run or what like sets to get into. I think he's thinking about it just more like holistically, like who should have more touches, who should be empowered and all that stuff. And I think that's why when things fall apart and him just being like, just go do it. Like there's no set to fall back into. It's just more like give the ball to the guy that should have the ball. That it sometimes fails and stuff, but I do think that's why players like playing for him more often than not.
Speaking of Doc Rivers, after the outrageous, just heartwarming story of the 4-on-5 playoff basketball game that Mike coached his team through, we got a few voicemails wondering one specific thing. 833-LickFace is the voicemail number. Let me just get to a couple of them here. I think they're important.
Dude, there's no way Doc wins that game that Mike won. There's no way. There's 4-on-5. First off, Mike, like, wow. Like, I almost got a little welled up when you were telling that story. I love an underdog. But there's no way Doc Rivers wins that game. No way. Like, there's no way.
Mike, your comment. Do you think Doc could have won that game that you won 4-on-5 in the playoffs?
I don't know. I feel like Doc maybe I was lively. I was lively at this point. I feel like they were so tired out there that I had to give just as much energy as they were giving. I don't know that Doc has it in him anymore.
833-LickFace.
Hey, Spike and Mike, this is Joe from Ambler. First time, long time. Sixers question, based off what I heard in the last pod, what would the DraftKings odds be if Mike was the Sixers coach for the Sixers to win the championship? And non-Sixers question, have you guys ever gotten ejected from a sporting event or game? And if not, what is your favorite ejection of all time? Love the pod. Thanks, guys.
So, Mike, the Sixers are currently plus 2,200 to win the title at DraftKings. If you were the coach, what do you think would happen to those odds? Set them, Vegas, Mike.
I think this is insider trading. For me to even answer this,
I say they go to minus 1,900.
Wow.
I think they shorten up.
It is not. It is almost very similar to the Whoopi Goldberg movie Eddie, where she coaches the Knicks.
Yep.
Sixers hire local podcaster.
Yeah.
to coach the team.
Oh my God, this would be an incredible story.
Would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
Trying to think like how I would earn their respect. I don't think I would, and I think that they would, all their friends would go back and listen to the podcast and be like, "This guy's fucking asshole. Look at all the things he said about Montrez. You should kick your guy's ass." And I'd be like, "Yeah, he should."
You show up in your Dickies coach jacket.
I have the jacket. So no, I don't think it'd be very good. But I would bring back the Brett Brown bell after the game.
Yeah,
for sure. My first order of business would be bringing back the bell.
So Tim Bontemps.
Oh wait, we didn't answer the ejected.
I've never been. Have I ever been kicked out of a sporting event? No. Favorite ejection? I don't know if I understand that necessarily. I've been told to calm down by an usher once or twice, but never kicked out.
I was thinking about as a sporting event that I've like played or coached.
Oh, participant? No.
I've gotten a couple technicals, but never ejected, which is surprising. I think because I'm hot-headed, and then immediately when confronted by somebody like a ref, I get very bashful very quickly. I say like, "Oh no, thank you, never mind." Like I pull it. I wilt pretty quickly.
I got yanked by my own coach once for 2 straight cross-checking penalties in hockey when I was in high school. But I only did that because I didn't know how to stop on ice skates, so I just cross-checked people. So, but that wasn't from an official; it was from the coach.
Seems reasonable. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good. I think baseball has the best ejections. I think that's when it's just a more fun situation.
Because it's always emotional. It's always get the fuck out of here. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's they don't confer. They just fucking send them home. Yeah.
That's very fun.
And then baseball players and managers hide out in the fucking tunnel in between the dugout and the locker room. I love it.
And any taking off their hat. You don't see much. Like if players started taking off their like unlacing their shoes, and there's not enough like gear to throw in basketball. Right. Whereas baseball really has that, and there's a longer walk out of there.
I think actually, if I'm to look back, my favorite ejection was when. Do you remember when Bynum leveled JJ Barea and then like took his shirt off before he left the court? Mm-hmm. That was very funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something about removing something. Yeah, whether it's a hat or kicking dust on a home plate situation.
Yeah,
it'd be very funny.
So the ESPN MVP straw poll came out. This is per Tim Bontemps, ESPN.com. To gauge where the MVP race stands roughly a third of the way through the regular season, ESPN asked 100 media members to participate in an informal poll that mimics the NBA's postseason award voting process. To make the balloting as realistic as possible, there were at least 2 voters from each of the league's 28 markets, along with a cross-section of national and international reporters. As with the NBA's official voting at the end of the season, voters were asked to submit a 5-player ballot, and results were tabulated using the league's scoring system. First was, let me give you the order of operations here, or the order of players in the straw poll. The first one, Jason Tatum, number 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 2, Luka Doncic, number 3, Steph Curry, number 4, Nikola Jokic, number 5, Ja Morant, number 6, Kevin Durant, number 7, Zion Williamson, number 8, Devin Booker, number 9, and Joel Embiid right ahead of Donovan Mitchell at number 10 with 0 first or second place votes. I'm not saying Embiid should be the MVP right now, but he should not be 10th. Like I think this is and I don't even have a problem with Jason Tatum or Giannis as 1 and 2.
No, you can't.
But I think you could make a very fair argument for Embiid over Doncic, Jokic, Morant, Durant, and Zion very easily. Booker's been really, really good, and his team's really good too. But
yeah, they've been scuffling a little bit lately.
Yeah.
But prior to the last week or two, they would deserve it. Zion's been awesome. I love Zion. He's the man. One of very close to being my favorite player in the league. Jokic has been good too, man. Like there's a bunch of good players in this league, and the Sixers haven't been good enough to like deserve it. You could also say the same thing about like Dallas and Golden State, which is weird. Which is weird why they're that far above Joel, despite the fact that they have similar or worse records.
Golden State's under 500. Golden State's under 500.
Yeah, and he'll be out for a while, so I don't think. right after I traded for him in the John Gonzalez fantasy league, so it's pretty tough for me. But I am beating Legs this week, so that feels good. Legs also dealing with injuries, to be fair. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I sort of like threw out the Embiid MVP, at least for the next. I don't think he's ever going to win MVP. It's sort of after the last 2 seasons, it not happening. It should have been one of them. It definitely should have been last season. But so I sort of was like, okay, it's not going to happen. He's still scoring a fuckload of points, and it doesn't seem a lot of times. It doesn't seem like he's doing it like in a this is a positive thing, like more effortlessly than he has in previous seasons.
Yep.
Which I like. Would like to continue seeing him hit threes. A little bit of a 3-point renaissance for Embiid here. Not as many attempts, but they have been going in. He seems to feel good about there. I'd like him to get off a couple more. But I've just sort of been like, okay, if it didn't happen last season, it's never going to happen. I think a guy that big with that many responsibilities on his shoulders. You have to like look unstoppable, and it's easier for those guys to look unstoppable because of their athleticism and the like smoothness and how many shots they're taking and how many. I just feel like Tatum maybe not. He's just having an incredible season, but yeah, I think there's a thing with people about Embiid, and I think they're just like they're not going to give it to him ever. And so he's just going to have some playoff success, and then maybe after that would turn into something.
It's just like Jokic. Denver's one of the worst 3 defensive teams in the league so far this year, and like I think you could partially or largely pin that on Jokic. Like I don't think you can pin the fact that the Sixers haven't been, I don't know.
The thing with all these other guys, in addition to Embiid, is that their teams fall off a cliff when they're not there.
Yeah.
Jokic is definitely like that. Luka's definitely like that. Steph, 100%. I haven't looked, but I wonder if Zion is like that. And I'm like happy he's getting recognition because he's playing awesome. He's such a fun watch.
He's not an MVP candidate yet, though, I don't think.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
But they are the best team in the West right now, so you got to give it at least early in the season. This is why it's a straw poll. You give
for sure.
Throw
give
some
him credit
for
that.
Yeah. Can I say one more quick thing about the Warriors game?
Yeah. Go ahead.
James Wiseman sucks.
He does.
He's awful. And
he does.
The propaganda network of Warriors and Bay Area reporters or whoever's anything, whether it's just like national people or that whatever, continue to be like, should they trade him? Should they sell low on James Wiseman? Like, can they Wiseman and a pick could get them like Kyle Kuzma? It's like no one. He's in the G League. He's not good. He's not better than Jahlil Okafor. He is not better at basketball than Jahlil Okafor. Okafor, unfortunately for him, was definitely not as good as people wanted him to be, but also was in a tough situation for his era, for his skill set. In 10, 15, 20, any before that, he would have been a successful NBA player. James Wiseman would be a successful NBA player. Never. In no era of basketball. Maybe when everyone else was like 5'7", and he was just so big that he could do anything. But like he's not good on defense. He's not a smart player. Anytime he takes a jump shot, even when it goes in, you're like, great, fine. That's totally fine. He's a lob threat. You can find plenty of lob threats. He's not a good rebounder. He's just not that good. And everyone keeps being like, but the potential. And it's like, there's not much there. I think so much people get just like locked into where someone was drafted, and you go like, you're going to hang on to that forever. The Warriors fucked up by drafting him. They could have had so many other players. They made the mistake. It was a mistake then, and it continues to be a mistake. And they won a championship despite A, drafting a total dud at 2, and B, not trading him for, you could say anybody, Miles Turner, whoever, when people still thought James Wiseman was James Wiseman. And he's not. He's just a guy.
poor Sam from Light Years. I feel like hates James Wiseman more than I ever hated Ben Simmons. Like has turned on Wiseman. He's just not good at anything.
He's not good at anything.
Yeah, he's not
He's
good.
just a guy that can catch lobs, which is nice. You can get those guys in the second round. I continually see. I always said, for whatever reason, Nick Richards was the guy that I kept being like, you can get Nick Richards in the second round. You can get Nick Richards undrafted. You can get those guys. You don't have to spend a top 3 pick on them. And Nick Richards has turned himself into a really solid NBA player in Charlotte. Better than I thought he would be. I wasn't like so high on Nick Richards. He's just a guy. He's just a guy who rebounds and catches lobs and sets screens and doesn't try to do too much. And has a nice little touch at the foul line, I will say. But like, it was such a dumb pick then. It was dumb for them to not trade him, and they won a championship in spite of that. And everyone continuously being like, well, James Wiseman, I don't know. They keep talking about him. Like, he's bad. Let's move on.
Before we get to the Harden article from your own, Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process. You might be asking yourself, how do you spell Kasabi? I need a realtor. How do I spell Kasabi? Ksebe. Ksebe. You might be asking yourself, how do I get in touch with Adam Kasabi? Here's his cell phone number. Call him or text him, 302-864-8643, 302-864-8643, or email adam@processrealtor.com. Adam's specialty and his team, who's based out of Long and Foster and Bethany Beach, Adam's specialty is Delaware beaches. I was mentioning, Christmas presents earlier when I talked about Kinetic. Hey, you want to get your spouse a shore home for Christmas? Call Ksebe. Adam Ksebe can help you out. The Delaware beaches are a much better value than the New Jersey beaches. Tons of options: Lewis, Rehoboth, Bethany, et cetera, and your tax bill is going to be like 10% of what it is in New Jersey. So if you're thinking about a shore house, you want to get a Delaware shore house, rent it out for like 3/4 of the summer. It'll pay your mortgage for the year. Adam Ksebe is the person that can help you out. Never mind, they can find you a house or sell your house anywhere in Delaware, anywhere in Maryland. And here's the special great thing about Adam Ksebe. Even though he cannot sell you a house in New Jersey, New York, PA, et cetera, he can be your conduit to a realtor who can. What he'll do is, if you reach out to Ksebe, he will interview realtors until he finds the exact right one who can fit your needs. Did it for me. He can do it for you. Again, Adam Ksebe is the official realtor of the process, the only realtor you need, Ksebe. Cell phone number, 302-864-8643, or email adam@processrealtor.com.
You want to talk about your sweatshirt for a sec?
Oh, yeah. Out the Mud, the official B-Ball Paul sweatshirt.
How
comes
was
from
the
B-Ball
customer
Paul.
service?
So the customer service was excellent. So you purchased this sweatshirt by DMing Paul Reed, the actual basketball player.
and friend of the pod.
And friend of the pod, Paul Reed. So I sent him a DM. I said, B-Ball Paul, I'm interested in buying an Out the Mud hoodie. He was like, what size, what color? Sent me a picture of all the colors. I decided on this stop sign red with the Out the Mud thing. I Venmo'd him the $100, which includes FedEx shipping.
Amazing.
About a week, they were on a road trip when I ordered it. When they came back, B-Ball Paul sent me
You had to wait till the road trip was over.
Yeah, because he had to come home and send it himself. he DM'd me the tracking.
Is he going to FedEx?
Yes, somebody. We got an
he is
email.
walking into FedEx himself?
100%.
If anyone sees B-Ball Paul at FedEx sending sweatshirts to people, we need to hear about it.
We got a DM from somebody who saw him shipping out sweatshirts at the FedEx store or whatever.
That already happened. Amazing.
Yeah. So I get the tracking, and here is, I'm going to give him credit because I'm a merch guy. I take great care in the fact that our t-shirts, our hats, or whatever are good quality. This is a very good quality, heavy Champion hoodie. And then I was worried about the graphics, the Out in the Mud graphics, that it would be some cheap digital print. It isn't. It's like, it's felt and it's done really well. It is a very good hoodie. I'll be wearing it all winter. I recommend the Paul Reed hoodie. I paid for this. I did not even get a discount, did not even get a free one, and I'm recommending that you buy a hoodie from B-Ball Paul.
Wow.
Yeah, there it is. He didn't pay 1 cent for that. Not 1 cent.
That's very nice. It's amazing. Like, some guys get involved in the Players Association. Some guys start their rap careers or their wine careers. And B-Ball Paul is doing it all by himself.
Yep.
becoming a merch guy,
Yep.
interacting with the customers,
Yep.
getting to FedEx.
Yep.
I wonder if the FedEx people know him.
Oh, look, B-Ball Paul's here again.
B-Ball
with a
Paul's back. How many sweatshirts this time?
sack of sweatshirts or whatever.
Sack.
Yeah.
I like Sack.
Yeah. I forget who did the
I want him
interview.
to start
Oh, go ahead.
packaging sweatshirts on the bench. If Doc's not going to play him, he should be allowed to do some of the stuff on the bench.
Bring the labels.
Bring
all
the
that kind of-
labels.
Yep.
Bring some like shipping. Give him some tape.
There's extra spots on the bench. Have the FedEx guy on the bench with him. You know,
That's
maybe
good.
he could. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So great hoodie from B-Ball Paul. Great hoodie from.
I
B-Ball
worked
Paul.
with a writer one time for a little bit over Zoom, who was only there for a little bit and who is more well known than he should have been on the show. And under the Zoom camera was him like doing some sort of like shipping operation, some like packaging something, and we could never exactly tell what it was, whether it was like fan mail or something. And I want B-Ball Paul to be doing that. If he's allowed to do that, then B-Ball Paul should be allowed to do that.
My dad twice had bobbleheads that they sold for charity, and they were packed up and shipped between my father and my uncle out of my parents' garage. All of the bobbleheads. So if you ever ordered a Howard Eskin bobblehead, it was packaged and shipped by either Howard or Eric Eskin for sure, 100%. Yeah. So our very own Yaron Weitzman, who wrote the First Process book, and which we had a whole chapter in, which we give him great credit for,
and has written many articles over the years
About
since
the
then
Sixers.
with his connections inside the team.
Yeah, he's like a national Sixers writer almost, I would say. So Yaron did you don't see very many of these, a sort of like sit-down interview with James Harden about several different things, in which Harden did answer all questions, whether they're approved answers or not. He answered all questions about everything, about the collapse, about his injury, about playing with Embiid. And Harden seemed sometimes delusional, but always honest, I felt like, in his responses. I thought there was an interesting thing after Yaron's lead and before the actual interview started. Yaron writes, "Before we continue, Harden wanted to make something very clear. Any quote you read here was simply a response to a question and not him trying to make any sort of excuses, though he knows that's how much of what he said is going to be interpreted." So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think all guys that do the like, I don't care what people say, then reveal themselves to be caring about what people say.
Yep.
I think that's very human. I think it's super like a natural thing to feel as like a famous person that people are hanging on, every play or every season to then shift the narrative on you and everything. I thought it was interesting. I thought that it was a very human interview. It felt like a guy that was trying to reckon with getting older,
Yes.
being towards the end of his best years,
Yep.
and having not had the success that he believes he should have. A lot of things have happened because of that. Those are the excuses that Harden didn't really want to go into so much. The excuses in the past were like, well, we just weren't good enough. We didn't have a good enough team, and there's only so much I can do, which is partially true. And now it's more like, well, he wasn't healthy. I wasn't healthy. My hamstring wasn't right. And I thought it was just like, you're seeing this guy who knows he's on his last legs, who wants to do right by his teammates and make sure that like they know he's going to get them the ball, but also be the guy that can. I think he probably feels a little boxed in. It's like, well, if I don't do too much, if I don't like demand the ball and go make shots, then people are going to say I'm just like deferring. And if I'm doing that too much, then people are going to say I'm like a ball hog, and I'm not doing that. But I thought it was a good article. I thought Yaron did a great job. And it is a reminder of how the three seminal people on this team, Daryl, James, Doc, Joel, need playoff success. All of them,
Right.
to like cement the people that they believe themselves to be. I don't think Doc thinks that he does need it, but he does.
Already named one of the 10 best coaches of all time.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if I do think he, the book on him now is mostly about how many great players he's had that he hasn't succeeded with. And so I think those 4 guys, like really this season, because there's not much time left for at least one of them, and who knows about the other, is like they got to win. They got to win in the playoffs. And I think that I wonder if we see more articles like this about them, because this is like of how much is riding on it for all of them.
I think your comment about it, about listening, about reading his reckoning with where he is in his career, both in an honest way and an honest but wrong way, and a lot of times is very apt, and I didn't think about it that way. I thought Yaron did a good job of pointing that out about Harden, about how every time he says he doesn't care what people say, he follows it up with a retort about what people say.
Which is not just a Harden thing, but yeah.
Yeah. I just want to go over a couple of the quotes. One of them, and I do, now that you say that, I do have a more empathetic view of the article than I did before. There were a few things that I wanted to point out I thought were interesting. So the first one, when he talks about the Nets experience, and he says, I don't mean to just like talk down to anybody or whatever. It was just there was no structure, and even superstars, they need structure. That's what allows us to be the best players and leaders for our respective organizations. True, though the book on you in Houston and your relationship with Daryl is that they sort of let you get away with whatever you wanted. And I think that right here, it is, I think it was probably very interesting to him to be in a place where he was not the person setting those standards, where it was somebody else, and how out of control it looked. And then he said, I just feel like internally things weren't what I expected when I was trying to get traded there. I think everybody knows that. And I knew people were going to talk and say, you quit and all that stuff. But then the following summer, the other superstar there wanted to leave, Durant. So it's like, am I still the quitter? I think the answer is you're both the quitter in that respect. I think Durant is a quitter and you are a quitter. And I think it does prove what he said, that there needs to be structure. But that needs to go for sort of everybody, I think. And I think that was part of what the only real superstar sort of like team up situation being in Miami, the only one that really worked is the one that had the most structure and the most like backbone in terms of management cohesiveness, So the thing about Game 6, about him basically checking out in Game 6, right? And I thought this was another interesting thing too. And this sort of leans into something Yaron gets into later when he talks about sort of Joel with Harden versus Joel against Harden in some way. He talks about the Game 6 thing, and he says, I'm getting traded to a situation where you got a guy in Joel Embiid, who in my opinion should have been the MVP, and everything was geared toward Joel. Everything was Joel, which I get. That's how they were playing the entire year, and so I was trying to fit in. It was never like, here, you're James Harden. This is how we want you to run the show. That's kind of the role I was playing. And then he goes on to say he doesn't make excuses, and he later says, the way our team's built, he laughed at the question of him losing a step. It's the way our team's built. Our bigs aren't lob threats getting behind the defensive big and pushing him down, so there's always a big in front of me. So it just makes more sense for me to shoot the mid-range shot or a floater other than trying to go in and draw contact.
Yeah, which is at least mostly wrong.
Yes, he can't get by. We've seen him not being able to get by people the same way anymore.
He doesn't have the step anymore. But I think it would look better if there was a backup center that was like Onyeka Okongwu, who could just like screen and roll and catch lobs. Trez can't do that anymore. B-ball Paul that's not his strong suit. I would if B-ball Paul added 50 inches to his vertical, which he should have. That was his homework assignment. Then I don't know why he couldn't also like work on becoming more of a lob threat, but it'd be nice if they had one to maybe at least partially mitigate the absolute real step that Harden has lost with the ball in his hands.
Well, by the way, him saying, I don't have a lob threat on the team that has Montrezl Harrell on it is such an incredible indictment of them signing Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah.
It's the biggest indictment of all time because that was what Montrezl Harrell was supposed to be able to do.
He's 6'7" with two 200-pound legs.
Right.
He can't do it anymore.
It's an incredible indictment of him. And then I have one other thing in the article I wanted to get to.
If we go into the playoffs with fucking Montrezl Harrell and B-Ball Paul still in the situation that they were last year, which like of Doc not wanting to play the guy that's better, I'm gonna lose it. We can't. At least they have to try to make a trade. Sixers Adam. We can get back to the Harden article, but Sixers Adam referenced maybe Andre Drummond. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it, but it would be better than Doc playing Trez, at least.
Right. I can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah.
By the way,
but
I can't wait because I know it's going to happen.
At least Drummond is a lob threat, although is another guy that has lost many ounces of blood in his legs.
Yeah, and I don't think can play in the playoffs, but whatever. Before we get to the final thing, our final sponsor of the pod, talk about Christmas time, the final week of shopping. None other than LL Pavorsky Jewelers is where you got to go.
That's it.
Oh, God, what a great gift for your loved one you can come away with if you go to LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Maybe you've been thinking about getting engaged. What better time than the holidays? You think it's too cliche. Let me tell you. It's cliche for a reason. It's fun. Imagine Christmas Eve night by the tree, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, by the window. You fucking propose with an LL Pavorsky ring. More than 300 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
That's right.
All of them say the same thing. Mike purchased engagement ring from LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
That's right.
All of them say the same thing. Oh my God, what a fucking guy. They say, oh my God, what great jewelry. Oh my God, I got a wonderful price. Oh my God, he forced me to write a complimentary email to you guys as well afterwards. Almost everything good about LL Pavorsky Jewelers. And if you're already married, an amazing, holiday gift, an amazing Valentine's Day gift, an amazing gift because you did something wrong, an amazing gift just to say I love you. LL Pavorsky Jewelers is the only place you should go. Only place. Been in business for more than 30 years. And every single person who we interact with who went to LL Pavorsky Jewelers says the same thing. Amazing. 215-627-2252 to make an appointment with LL. Appointment only because he wants to concentrate on you. 707 Walnut is where the store has been for over 3 decades. You could also email him, lee@llpavorsky.com, or tweet at him at @llpavorsky. Always a generous supporter of our sponsors, or not our sponsors, our charities, Providence Animal Center and Mama T's Community Fridge. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Do the process 3 or more times. Get engaged 4 more times.
Final thing about defense and about, it does seem as if even in Harden's return, the offense at least has remained more Joel focused than previously, I think. This is from Embiid. It's from your own and Embiid. Embiid told reporters numerous times that Sixers were done switching on screens, Harden's longtime preferred defensive scheme. I think at the beginning of the year, the mistake we made was we tried to go 1 through 5 a lot, Embiid told reporters.
Switch everybody.
Switch everybody. I can do it, but it's not what I'm good at. It's kind of like a lot on my shoulders because we play a lot out of delay. So it's really on me to make sure the offense keeps moving. That's what Yaron asked him about offense. Delay has long been an Embiid staple in an alignment where he catches the ball at the top of the key, where Harden likes to orchestrate and runs offense with a spread out floor. Earlier in the season, a rival scout had told me the Sixers weren't running that set as much as in years past. I asked Embiid if it was true. We weren't, but we now are, he told me. We have to keep doing it. I sort of respect Embiid's, I'm the best player on the team, everything's got to revolve around me, because he is the best player on the team. It's not Harden. And while I do think that Embiid thinks that the offense has to be a little more Embiid-centric than it has to be, I respect Embiid saying, no, we're not doing what's best for Harden. We're doing what's best for Joel because Joel is the one that has to take us to the promised land. I think it's interesting.
I think that's the sort of not democracy thing that I was talking about from Doc earlier. But it's the team has looked at times a lot this year, which is a my turn, your turn situation.
Yeah.
And over the next 5 months, it is their job to make it look more cohesive and find ways to be successful and effective with both of them on the court. And then when Maxey comes back, with all of them on the court, and feel like they're a fluid offense. There's no reason why more good players should make them look slower and more rigid offensively. So let's find a way to make it work. Joel has been setting screens, but he's going to have to do it for Maxey also. The defense thing is interesting to me because, like, against the Warriors, Joel was in a drop for a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevon Looney would set a screen on, let's say, Jordan Poole being covered by DeAnthony Melton. And Embiid's dropping, and it's just like he's walking into a three. Like, that is not an effective system. I get that they would prefer to have guys take shots off the dribble than shots off the catch when they're wide open. I understand that. And they have some level of trust in all of their defenders to get around screens. But you got to give him some help. And so whether it's that's why I like B-Ball Paul so much, is because he'll like at least stunt or hedge and then be able to recover. You never see, I wonder if this is a pride thing with Joel, but like you never see like with a, you know, he's not a liability on defense, obviously, Joel, even in against anybody in the open court, him having to defend on the perimeter, he can do it. He doesn't want to do it. He shouldn't have to do it as much, especially in like regular season games. You want him to be back there protecting the rim. But for other defensive liabilities or guys that you don't want to protect out in the perimeter, they will not allow the switch as easily. They will not allow their guy to cover it. They will switch before the screen gets set. So like if Kevon Looney comes over to set the screen, Embiid could gesture to like Tobias, as an example, even though I didn't play last game, and I did miss him. I missed him when he wasn't playing. Looked great on the bench. Nice sweater.
We are a pro Tobias podcast.
Absolutely. He could gesture to Tobias, okay, you go with Kevon Looney. I will then switch onto your guy who is not setting the screen to allow for that switch to happen with, you know, Tobias and Melton. And then Melton would switch on Kevon Looney, which is obviously like, I don't know if it's not like it would have to be personnel based, and I think that maybe that kind of thing wouldn't happen until the playoffs when you knew the other team so well and you got into a rhythm against them, and the matchup made it worthwhile. But if we're not going to have Embiid switch everything sometimes when it counts, I'm fine with it now for the most part. I would like a little bit more of a hedge or meeting him at the middle and then recovering, especially depending on who the screener is. Then I wonder if they start to switch before the screen gets set. I feel like you see that with like good, heady defensive teams.
Yeah.
And I would like to see like a couple examples of that over the course of the season as an option. So that if Embiid doesn't want to switch 1 through 5, then let's get him onto somebody else on the perimeter, especially if it's late enough in the shot clock. That just requires so much communication to where like they couldn't just again like, okay, let's reset and let's set the screen with the guy Embiid is covering. Like it's almost like kind of like a half zone situation, and it might require Embiid to be switched onto, like as an example, just keeping with the Warriors, like Andrew Wiggins or something. But like if he doesn't want to be switching against guys who can really shoot, Jordan Poole, Steph, whatever, Jason Tatum, whatever, then like the answer can't just be like, okay, fight around that screen, fight around this huge, massive screen, fight around this Grant Williams screen, DeAnthony Melton. It's going to take him some time to get there, and it will allow Jason Tatum to have an open shot. And so I just wanted to see options, and I wonder what, like, whether it's Dan Burke or Dave Yeager, like, what is the thought process defensively of, like, what are we going to do to that? And it can't just be, like, simply he's just going to drop and allow an open three.
Well, right, shooters. Because every playoffs with that drop coverage, we get murdered because the other team that you're playing eventually has a player who can obliterate you doing that.
And I also get I also get like, okay, we want to prevent shots at the rim. I like that. I'm a fan of that. And if it's the right 3-point shooters taking shots, then that's also fine. You have to live with it. They're going to get some shots off. But it is a gut punch or a dick punch in spike terms when their best players just get to walk into open threes.
Yeah.
happened with Trae Young. Like,
Fuck, man. We saw it happen with Kemba Walker. Is CJ, is Mike completely frozen to you? Wow. CJ, could you come on so I'm not just talking to myself live?
Mike is completely frozen.
Yeah. Do you want to? Now Mike is gone. Is Mike back?
I've removed him and put him back in.
Yeah, you can remove. Do you want to text him, tell him to come back so we can? I had one fucking mailbag question and one voicemail question I wanted to get to while he was there. We did have somebody in the chat asking about Google Podcasts again. The issue with Google Podcasts is that for some reason, through no change of our own, the feed went from the Rights to Ricky Sanchez feed to the Carl Landry Record Club feed. There's literally no reason why that should happen. It switched back to our previous provider. There's no reason. We didn't do anything for that to happen. Both are under my username, but that shouldn't have happened. We requested a change. Oh, Mike's back.
what the hell is that?
I don't know.
Computer
You froze.
just restarted out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That sucked. Freaking Doc Rivers hacking onto my computer,
That's all right.
getting into my mainframe,
I have one mailbag and one
replacing
more
me
voicemail.
with Montrezl Harrell.
One voicemail, one email before we get going. The email address, rightstrickysanchez@gmail.com, rightstrickysanchez@gmail.com. This came from Andrew. If you have Milton and Melton, and one of them is named Shake, then the other one has to be Steak. Nothing could be more obvious. Steak Melton. Make it happen. What do you think?
So Steak Melton.
Steak Melton and Shake Melton. Steak and Shake. It's not a bad thought.
No, it's not. It's not bad.
It's
And
a
he
funny
is-
nickname.
Yeah, and he is like the thicker of the two, and
Yep.
he's the protein of the team. He
Would
gives
be a
you lot of
great
good stuff.
T-shirt. Just like a big steak and a shake.
We can think about it.
Yeah, we could definitely think about it.
I would want him to. I wonder what I would like someone to ask him about it. Like if especially during like once Tyrese gets back and they become like the bench guard rotation, like it's not a bad something to keep in mind over time.
833 Lickface is the voicemail number.
Hey, Eric here. I got something to say to all these fair weather fans who just can't even bring themselves to enjoy anything about the team this year. Get over it. Have a little fun. So what if they're going to lose in the second round? You don't know that. This happens every year with every team. Not every team wins the championship every year. I get that they lose in spectacular fashion, but if you can't enjoy the journey, what's the point of being a sports fan? Just stop caring about it. Stop talking about it. Stop calling, podcast lines about it. Just enjoy your time on this earth and enjoy when Joel Embiid drops 53 on bad teams' heads. Who doesn't love it? All right. Have a good day, guys.
Jason Lipschitz now paying people
Yeah, to leave voicemails.
to leave voicemails.
Yeah, it's
with his
embarrassing.
agenda. Ridiculous.
Look, I think that is a healthy way to live,
Sure.
for sure. But I don't know. I feel like why can't you just enjoy it for what it is not for people who call podcast lines and listen to Sixers podcast. Like,
Yeah.
like if you're fucking listening to this at this point, like you have an absolute right to be frustrated if they lose in the second round again.
Totally.
And not just enjoy it like a normal person.
Totally. I mean, there's people that go to like Pistons games right now and really hope they win.
Yeah.
They just want to see their team win, or Spurs games right now. And it's like,
Yep.
some people aren't thinking about it on any level other than that, which is fine. But
Absolutely.
it's also fine to, want to bash your dick in and
Yes.
call podcast lines and say that this fucking team is making you want to drown yourself.
Absolutely. And actually, one more voicemail because I feel like you will love this one, and then we'll get going. 833 Lickface.
Hey guys, watching the Warriors game, and this is probably the first time in my life where I was like, wow, I kind of miss watching Tobias Harris play basketball with the Sixers. And I think the correlation is, I think after everyone watched Nick Castellanos with his money just absolutely suck, and then I think everybody got over the whole Tobias contract thing for good. And I think everyone's like, you know what? Tobias Harris really isn't that bad. I think we like him. Let me know what you guys think.
Yeah. I definitely, as I said, like felt Tobias's absence in that game for sure. They lacked athleticism and someone that just like he's a, as far as like modern wings go, the Sixers haven't had many of them. It's been like Jimmy, and then like look around, and so Tobias has had to be like, he's been like the most reasonable facsimile of that kind of player that like everyone else around the league seems to have and want. As a guy, like he can switch everything a little bit. He can defend. He's made himself into a better defender. He can shoot now off the catch. He can get you a bucket, like those kinds of things. And so like they definitely missed him in this game. I like that they sat him. If his back's hurting, and like that's a good game to sit. Get him a couple extra days of rest against a team that is very shorthanded. It was nice, but you feel his absence for sure. For sure you do. And the Castellanos thing is an interesting correlation. He was very bad for much of the season. Those 3 diving catches that were all the same exact diving catches, it was pretty crazy for that to happen and him to make all those plays. That was nice. But I think more so the attention on the team has diverted to like Harden is not the guy that we traded for. Embiid sometimes looks a little bit lackluster despite the points that he's putting up and everything. Not always playing at the height of his powers, and then Doc running into the same rakes that he always does. And so Tobias has sort of taken a backseat to that. And he has been good. And Tobias just has been good, and he has not been remotely the problem with this team in any way.
Who's the next game against? Toronto, right? Who has been struggling?
Toronto team.
Yeah, struggling Toronto, who will, I'm sure, make it the game will be torture. They
got to win this game. Look, there's 5 after this one. 4 after this one. So it's got to be, we got Toronto, but then it's Detroit, and then Clippers. Am I missing one? Yeah, Toronto, Detroit, Clippers, and those are the last home games, and then at the Knicks, at the Wizards. So
Knicks playing better. Knicks won 6 in a row, something like that. Yeah,
not scared of the Knicks. Shouldn't be scared of the Knicks. Knicks has to be a win as well. But let's focus one at a time. 5 more to go.
All right, we will talk to you then. Until that time, are you
go
down
Birds.
with Go Birds? Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, like